Today, an interesting topic, Be'ezrat Hashem, and that is the topic of electric cigarettes. Now, electric cigarettes are something that's very common now, and people use them instead of smoking regular cigarettes. And there are a few questions in halakha that we have to deal when we're dealing with those electric cigarettes. The first question would be, is the question of kashrut on such things. Do we need kashrut when you put those liquids in order to smoke them? It's not only the cigarettes, it's also the hookah. When we're dealing with a hookah, when we're dealing with cigarettes, does it require kashrut? There are other questions also, like for instance, do you say a bracha? Interestingly, that Rav Mordechai Karp writes that it requires bracha. It's not like regular smoking, he says, and therefore it requires bracha. There's a big machloket about gum. When you chew gum, do you say bracha on the gum or you don't? There are poskim that actually say you shouldn't say a bracha on gum. Like for instance, Rav Moshe Levi writes that gum doesn't require a bracha. It's like matemet, that when you want to just taste something and you don't mean in order to eat it, so you don't say bracha. Same thing says Rav Moshe Levi for those gums that you chew. But would we say it's the same idea by the smoking of that electric cigarettes? So over here, the discussion is maybe it's much more than that. Maybe you're inhaling something in there and such a thing. It's not like regular cigarettes, and therefore he holds of Mordechai Karp that it needs a bracha. Lemaise, I would assume that most of the poskim would say that one doesn't need to say bracha on such a thing. But when it comes to the question of kashrut, that's a real question, because although you're tasting something, and even if you just the flavor goes inside the throat a little bit, obviously such a thing requires kashrut. There's no question about that. Another question that electric cigarettes might have is smoking on Yom Tov. Now, even those that hold you can smoke cigarettes on Yom Tov, which is a question by itself, because it's not anymore something that's considered davar shaveh lechol nefesh. It used to be that cigarettes were allowed to be smoked on Yom Tov because of that idea, since most people used to smoke. So Pnei Yehoshua said such a thing would be mutar, and therefore the poskim afterwards allowed smoking on Yom Tov the cigarettes. But today's generation, that smoking became very much unpopular, and therefore you have only very few that smoke. The majority of the society doesn't smoke anymore. Rav Eliashiv said it's not anymore davar hashaveh lechol nefesh. It becomes a machloket, Chacham Ovadia matir bedochak, and so on and so forth. But that's not the topic here. The topic here is smoking that electric cigarette in case, or according to the opinions that hold you could smoke regular cigarettes. Would you say that electric cigarettes would be permitted? So here also many poskim deal with that and come out to conclusion that it's asur, because as I explained, it's electricity over here, and you're turning the thing on, and then every time you smoke there's some kind of electricity that starts igniting from that, and therefore on Yom Tov that would not be permitted. Our question today, the main topic, is the kashrut question, which we're trying to dwell and understand. Now, when we come to the question of kashrut, so anything that you consume, you eat, you put in your body, obviously needs to be kosher. For example, many people ask the question when you present something and you say you need kashrut for such a thing. So they ask you, what do you mean? Well, what could be in there already? What's there? What could be not kosher in there? Well, that question is usually wrong. Why? Because kashrut doesn't work with knowing or thinking what could be not kosher here. It's the opposite. Before you eat anything, before you put anything in your mouth, you have to know 100% that it's kosher. It doesn't work the opposite. That what could be not kosher here? Let me know what's not kosher and I'm not going to eat it. No. In order to eat something, you have to know that it's kosher, not what could be not kosher. If you don't 100% know that this thing that you're willing and ready to put in your mouth is kosher, so you're not allowed to eat such a thing. Now when we come to these electric cigarettes, the question is, those liquids that have in them many times all kind of things that could be not kosher. For instance, they put in many things today glycerin, which comes from the fat of the animal, and that comes to give you a taste, a flavor. Glycerin is very sweet. It also, they add that to cigarettes in order to keep it moist, so it's not going to dry out. And therefore, that glycerin is 100% treif. There's no question about it. It comes from an animal. If it comes from an animal, you can't eat it unless that animal was a kosher animal that was shechted correctly. Otherwise, you're not allowed to eat it. So now when they put those kind of things inside all kind of different cigarettes, cigars, or the electric cigarettes, how could you smoke such a thing? So that's a question. Now, in cigarettes already, we have the Sha'ar HaMelech that the Pitchei Tshuva brings down in Siman Kufchet, and he comes out that in cigarettes it would be mutar, and therefore we need to see, would that apply also to electric cigarettes as well? So when we're dealing with electric cigarettes, we're really going into the sugya of reicha, the smell. Now, one might ask, what does that have to do with the smell? It goes in the body, you inhale it in your mouth. It's not a smell that goes in your nose. But the truth is that this is how the Shulchan Aruch brings down. It seems like the Shulchan Aruch wants to have a comparison between something that goes in the mouth as just inhaling and not actually putting anything inside the throat, just inhaling, and something that you actually smell in your nose. Now, the sugya starts in Masechet Avodah Zarah, Daf Samech Vav Amud Bet, where over there we have what we call bat tiha. Bat tiha, Rashi explains here that it used to be a barrel with holes in it, on top, and people used to smoke to see if the wine that's there is a good wine. You want to check if the wine is good inside the barrel. So you would smoke that wine, you would smell that wine, and once you smell that wine, you'll know if it's good or not good. So the Gemara says, Bat tiha Israel bedeovel kochavim. You have Israel that wants to smell the wine of a goy, which is yain nesech, which is asur, obviously. So now you want to smell that. Are you allowed to smell that, or you're not allowed to smell it? Abai amar asur. Abai said it's forbidden to smell such a thing. It's yain nesech. How could you smell it? Rava amar mutar. What's the machloket? Abai says it's asur reicha miltai. The smell is something forbidden. Therefore, you're not allowed to smell a forbidden item, forbidden food, forbidden wine. Because recha miltai, recha, the smell has value to it. It's asur to have a smell that you're not allowed to consume. And Rava says it's mutar recha lav miltai, although maybe you're not allowed to consume that wine because it's yain nesech, but to smell it, it would be mutar. So over here we have a machloket, Abaye and Rava. Now we all know that when there is a machloket Abaye and Rava, so the halacha is always like Rava, except 6 places that the Gemara says, Ya'al Kagam, that the halacha is like Abaye. But normally, halacha is like Rava. So what did Rava say over here? That the smell is something that's mutar, although it's smelling a forbidden item, forbidden kind of food, wine, yain nesech, but since you're just smelling it, you're not actually consuming it, Rava says it's mutar. And according to that, everything would be fine if you want to smell something that's asur. But we do find a contradiction to that conclusion, and that contradiction was found in the same Masechet Avodah Zarah, Daf Yud Bet Amud Bet, and over there it says that you're not allowed to benefit a store of Oved Kochavim in the day that they worship idols over there. And how do you know if that store is such a store that worship idols? So it says in the Mishnah over there that it depends if it's meutar or not meutar. So did they decorate the store or not? If you see that they decorated, so you know that they're benefiting the Avodat Kochavim, the idol. Which kind of decoration would determine that they're benefiting the idol? Says Amar Rav Shimon ben Lakish, Lo shanu ela meutarot bevered vehadas dekamithane mirecha. The isur is only when it's decorated with all kind of different flowers that would be showing that this is something that for Avodat Kochavim, and the reason is because mithane mirecha, you benefiting from the smell. So over here comes out clearly from that Gemara that you're not allowed to benefit from a smell of davar that's asur. So we have a contradiction. In the Gemara, in Samech Vav Amud Bet, Rava says, Re chalav miltai. You're allowed to smell something that's asur. And over here in the Gemara Yud Bet Amud Bet, the Gemara says that the smell of davar that you're not allowed to smell would be asur, mithan demirecha. It's a serious question, because we posek halacha lakrava, and over here it seems like the opposite. Both Gemarot la halacha. How do you work those two things together? So if we start with the Rif in Masechet Chulin, in Per Gida Nashe, Daf Lamed Bet, he brings down that really it's all consistent, and the opinion that holds you're not allowed, that's the opinion that holds you're not allowed anywhere to smell something that's asur, and the opinion that holds that it's mutar, he would hold that it's mutar every place, and therefore the Rif would say that la halacha lechatchila it's asur, but the Eved it's mutar, as the Shulchan Aruch we're gonna see is posek in Siman Kuf Chet. But this is the Rif opinion. Also the Rambam seems like he wants to be matir b'shufi. He says the lashon of the Rambam in Ilchot Ma'achalot Asurot, Perek Yud Gimel Halacha Yud Daled. He says the following. He says mutar l'Yisrael l'ariach b'chavit shel yain nesech. Israel is allowed to smell the barrel of yain nesech, ve'en bazeh shem isur she'en areach klum lefi she'en bo mamash. There's nothing to the smell, and therefore smelling such a barrel of yain nesech is permitted without any chashash, any problem. But even according to the Rambam, we'll see that it's not so pashut. How do you work out the contradiction of it according to other Rishonim? Bishlama, according to the way we explain right now, the Rif says that it's not a contradiction because it's according to that opinion that holds that it's asur. But other Rishonim had different answers to work out the two things. And if you take a look at Tosfot in Daf Yud Bet Amud Bet in Avodah Zarah, he brings over here few different ways how to work out this question. He starts off like this. When we're saying that vered, ve'adas, those flowers would give you a good smell, that's asur. So therefore, Rabbeinu Tam asked from batiha, from the barrel with the holes on top, is that you're trying to smell. Now, trying to smell is a little bit questionable. What does it mean, trying to smell? You're smelling the wine or you're inhaling the wine? We'll see a little bit later that there is a difference of opinions in the Rishonim how to learn batiha, the holes on top of the barrel that you're trying to smell or inhale, and inside there's yain and nesech, forbidden wine. Are you smelling it in your nose or are you actually inhaling in your mouth? We'll see a machloket in that. The Maaseh, the Shulchan Aruch would say that you're allowed even to inhale such a thing in your mouth. But we get to that in a minute. Says Rabbeinu Tam, there's a question over here that we asked before. In one hand, the veret v'adas is mithan demerecha, you benefiting from the smell, it's asur. On the other hand, batiha, we're saying it's mutar. How is that possible? Tiretz, he answers the following. Shani veres ve'adas dikarayu lerecha kaime. Do you need to know that veret ve'adas are different because flowers are made in order to smell. And therefore, when you're smelling such a thing, that's permitted. That's fine. There's no problem with that. Hadas, you take hadassim and you're smelling. So that's problematic. Why? Because smelling such a thing of veret ve'adas is since they are made for it, and if it's asur, then it's asur. That's the isur of veret ve'adas. Veret ve'adas asur. Why? Because ikarayu lereicha kaimi. Since they're made for the smell, such a thing would be forbidden. It's asur. But when we're dealing with the batiha, wine is not made for smell. Wine is made to drink, not to smell. And therefore, since wine is made in order for you to drink, that's what it's made for. So therefore, smelling it would not be forbidden. So again, Rabbeinu Tam gives us and suggests an answer that it depends if the thing is made for that or not made for that. Veret ve'adas, flowers are made in order to smell. That's what they're there for. That's ikarayu kaime. Ikarayu lereicha kaime. They're made up in order to smell. So therefore, smelling a forbidden flower would be asur. But wine is made to drink and not to smell, and therefore smelling is something that's strange and different from what it's made for, and therefore such a thing would be mutar. That's one ma'alach that Tosfot goes, and then Rabbeinu Tam says another way. He says, אפילו לא אבי קראי לריך, שמא יש לאסור, דאמרינן כל איסורים שבתורה אין לוקים עליהם, אלא כדרך הנאתן, מכל מקום איסור המי העיקר. Says Rabbeinu Tam that even if we're saying that reicha would not be lokeh עליהם, we're not going to be punished for such a thing, because you're not doing it כדרך הנאתן, it's not the normal way of benefiting from that smell, but even then it's still asur. And that's the lashon of the Gemara in Pesachim kaf daled amud bet. Kol isurim shebatora en lokim aleim ela kederech hanatan. If you benefit from the isur kederech hanatan, then there's a punishment for it. But if you're not benefiting from it kederech hanatan, there's no punishment for that act that you made, but it's still forbidden. And over here, therefore, we're saying that although you might say that batia, let's say, it's shelo kederech hanatan, and therefore there's no punishment for smelling such a thing. But since it's still davar asur, therefore one should not do it. Mikol makom isura mi'aika. Now Tosfot doesn't stay with that answer. He rejects that answer, but the Ran does bring such a malach. So therefore we do have two malachim meanwhile to understand the difference between smelling that's asur and smelling of the batiha. The first malach was smelling davar that's asur, it's only if it's made for the smell, and smelling a batia is mutar because it's not made to smell. Second malach, which is similar a little bit to the first, is that since you're doing something shelo kederech, it's not the normal way, so therefore such a thing would be mutar. Now could be that although we're saying it's mutar, it's asur, it's not going to be punishable, but it's still asur. Now could be that the two things work hand in hand, and it's really one answer. Tosfot ends up saying a third way, and that third way is going to be very much in the halacha, as we'll see, and that is there's a difference between the smelling of regular things and batiha. Why? The batiha, which is the wine, he says Tosfot, בטיח אף אגב דביין נסך מאירי, כן איסור עבודת כוכבים, החמירו בו, התמלי כהנא, כי אדרבה חוזק היין נכנס בחותמו ומזיקו, which means, normally, yes, this will be דבר אסור. You're not allowed to benefit from יין נסך, it's אסור בהנא, according to most opinion, according to the Shulchan Aruch. So, therefore it should be asur. But over here, it doesn't benefit you even shelo kederech hanah, because adraba, chozek hayayin nichnas bechotmo, the strength of the wine gets into your nose, umaziko, and it hurts you, and it damages you, and it gives you an uncomfortable feeling. So therefore, why are you doing it? So we said, the reason you're smelling it is in order to understand the quality of the wine. But otherwise, such a thing would be asur, only if you're doing it for a different purpose, not to benefit from it. So over here, since it's giving you a bad feeling when you're smelling it, because it's nichnas bechotmo, chozek hayayin umaziko, so therefore such a thing would be permitted, and that's the way the Shulchan Aruch is posek, halacha lema'aseh in siman kufchet. Says the Shulchan Aruch that when we're dealing with bat tiha, the smelling of the barrel that has in it the wine is permitted. But he says, the Shulchan Aruch, that smelling over here is not only smelling with your nose, but even inhaling with your mouth. And he says the following in Seif Hey, Kufchet, Seif Hey. מותר לשאוף בפיו ריח יין נסך דרך נקב שבחבית לדי מותו. You're allowed to inhale in your mouth the smell, or the reach, as he calls it, the whatever comes out while you're inhaling it, in order to see if it's good or not good. Now over here you find a machloket, as we explained before. What does it mean, smell? Do you smell in your nose or inhale? Rashi and Tosfot says that le'ariach, so that means the words le'ariach normally means with your nose, so therefore since they use the simple words, it seems like the understanding is only in your nose. But since the Ran holds, the Ran, and there's also others that brings down like the Aruch, that you're inhaling in your mouth, so therefore that's how the Shulchan Aruch was posek, that you're inhaling over here in your mouth that wine, yain nesech, and therefore it's mutar. So let's make order over here out of this thing. Here we're saying that you're allowed to inhale. So if one wants to take an electric cigarette, he inhales that in his mouth. לכאורה it should be mutar. What is this different than this? מותר לשאוף בפיו ריח יין נסך דרך נקב שבחבית לדיים הוא טוב. You're inhaling it to see if it's good. So therefore, it's mutar because you're only inhaling it. You're not actually drinking anything, eating anything. It's mutar. So therefore, such a cigarette would be mutar. Nafka mina. Does it need kashrut? The nafka mina also for Pesach, for instance. Does it have question of chametz? That sometimes they put in there all kind of alcohols and things like that. So therefore, would it be mutar? Would it be asur? It seems like from here that it's mutar, but the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch was ledai mutov. The reason you inhaling it is to know if it's good. And says and adds the Rama, אבל אסור לתואמו אף על פי שאינו בולעו. You're not allowed to taste it, even though you're not actually swallowing, but you're not allowed to taste such a thing. That's asur. You know that it's asur. How could you taste such a thing? So it comes out like this. We have over here few ways how to work out the contradiction, and let's see how it would fit into the electric cigarette. The first answer that Tosfot said, and maybe that goes together with the second answer, and that is there's a difference between vered ve'adas that is made for smelling, that's asur, but the batiha is not something that's made for smelling, it's made to drink, and therefore that's mutar. When we're dealing with the electric cigarettes, obviously it's made to smell, and therefore, or to inhale, and therefore since that's what it's made for, you're inhaling something that's made for that, you bought it for that, you're using it for that, that is what it's there for, and therefore such a thing, according to this understanding, would be asur, and this is also the lashon of the Shulchan Aruch. The Shulchan Aruch says that the only time it's mutar is lidai mutov. You want to know if it's good, and we're dealing with batiha and nothing else, and therefore such a thing seems to be asur as electric cigarette. That's the first way. And even if we want to say that there's a second answer in Tosfot, as the Ran brings, and that is that Tosfot says that there's a difference of doing something kederech or shelo kederech, and he says that kol isurim shebatorah en lokim aleim ela kederech hanatan, which this will be derech hanato, this will be the same way that one wants to benefit, tries to benefit, and therefore if you learn that it's a second way of understanding, still it will be asur, definitely if you learn it the first way. And then finally Tosfot says a third way of understanding, and that is the batia actually nichnas bechotmo umaziko. It damages you, it gives you a bad feeling, it hurts you, it makes you uncomfortable, and therefore it's mutar. And the only reason you're doing it, again, is to know the quality of the wine. And therefore, according to that, comes out that electric cigarettes also would not be permitted, because what's the reason you're inhaling an electric cigarette? The reason for that is because you want to enjoy the smoking, and therefore such a thing comes out to be asur. Now, the Reza in Psachim, Baal HaMaor, he brings down another way to answer up this question, and that is, he says that it depends what you're doing that's going to determine if it's asur or mutar. What's your intention? He says that if your intention is to smell, then it's asur. If your intention is to check the wine, it's mutar. And that is the simple chiluk that we said over here, that over here the intention of the smell of the vered ve'adas is to enjoy and benefit the good smell that it gives, so that would be asur. Where by batiha, you're only checking the wine, and therefore it's mutar. If you learn that that's the answers that we gave before, which all go more or less on the same line, this over here also would apply to us electric cigarettes, and say that since your intention over here by inhaling is to inhale it in order to feel the good feeling that it gives you, this would be also something that's asur. Now when we're dealing halacha lema'aseh with reicha, normal smell that comes out of something that's asur, להלכה we posek in kuf chet seif aleph that lechatchila reach is asur, b'di'evet reach is mutar, as the Shulchan Aruch says, אין צולים בשר כשרה עם בשר נפלה, או של בהמה טמאה בתנור אחד, ואף על פי שאין נוגעים זה בזה, ואם צלען, הרי זה מותר. Why? We're explaining like this over here. You're not allowed to put in the same oven trefa together with kasher. Why? Because the smell goes from one to the other. This is the sugya machloket Levi and Rav, and this is how we posek halacha lema'aseh lechatchila, that it's asur, as the Taz brings down and the Shach brings down here. מצלם הרי זה מותר, דרך עליו מילתא היא בדיעבד. לכתחילה ריחא מילתא, בדיעבד ריחא לאו מילתא. So therefore when we go into that sugya of ריחא מילתא and ריחא לאו מילתא, we see that לכתחילה you're not allowed to have such a smell, whether it comes from one meat to another meat and gives that smell away, or whether you're smelling it yourself right away from the thing that's asur. And the halacha continues in Sif Hey, as we explained before, that mutar lish'of befiv reach yain nesech, derech nekev shebechavit lidayim utov, as we explained before the batia, that you're allowed to inhale. So what should be, and why should it be mutar? So the explanation over here, as we explained before, it's either because it's made for it, or it's shelo kederech, or you're doing it in something that actually damages you or hurts you or gives you a bad feeling, bad sensation. You don't want it. That's why you're doing it. And when we bring that halacha lema'aseh to electric cigarettes, all that comes to be and indicate that the electric cigarettes should be asur. And if you learn the next halacha, for instance, in Seif Vav, he says shak shel pilpalim v'zingabil shemesimin bekankanei ayin nesech. You have a pack of pilpelin, all kind of peppers that have over there in that place that you used to put yain nesech. So now it gives a little bit smell into it. Mutar le'ariach b'hem. You're allowed to smell those zingabil, pilpelin, all kind of different spices. How could you smell on it? There used to be yain nesech over here, which gives a smell to that as well. So the explanation to that in the Taz and in the Shach is because she'en hayayin noten b'hem koach adraba mevasmim hayayin, which means the wine smell of the yain nesech that's asur was not actually, didn't pass through to the pilpelim and zingabil in order for you to smell it and feel the smell of that wine. And therefore, since you're not going to smell it, you're not going to feel it, therefore it's mutar. That's one way. Second way, says the Taz in the Shach, גם מריח אין כוונתו להריח היין, אלא להטבלין. Since that's not your intention to smell the wine, rather you only want to smell the spices, so therefore you're allowed to smell it. But otherwise, it would be asur. So it comes out that when we're smelling something with an intention to smell, and it does give that smell away, that would be asur. So since we said before, smelling or inhaling is the same way, as we're explaining over here, you bring it into your body in such a way, and that's your intention, it should be asur. For instance, it's the next halacha, Sif Zayin, it says, בסמים של עבודת כוכבים וכלאי הכרם ועורלה, אסור להריח בהם. You're not allowed to smell the smell of different spices of עבודת כוכבים, כלאי הכרם. Why is that? Again, because that's your intention, and that's what it's made for, and it's not mazik, and adraba, it gives you a good feeling. Therefore, such a thing would be asur. Now one might ask, what is this different from brushing teeth? You want to brush your teeth with all kind of different toothpastes that have different flavors. That's asur. Today, toothpastes have a lot of glycerin in them, huge amount of glycerin, and therefore you're putting it in your mouth. It should be asur. You should have kashrut on toothpaste. And there are many poskim that hold you should have kashrut, like Avelsky. He says that since you're putting it in your mouth, you should have kashrut on the toothpaste. But there are many poskim that say you don't need kashrut. Like for instance, the Rivot Ephraim brings from Rav Moshe Feinstein. Also, you have the Har Tzvi explaining that it doesn't need kashrut. And there's Rav Pinchas Scheinberg held you didn't need kashrut. And therefore, you might ask, why is this different than smoking and inhaling that hookah or that electric cigarette? The answer is that there's a very big difference between the two. The difference is, the Har Tzvi explains that there's two derabanan over here. One derabanan is that, first of all, tasting something only on your tongue is only isur derabanan, as we see in the beginning of Hilchot Ta'arovot. And if you take a look at the Pri Megadim over there, in the very, very beginning of Hilchot Ta'arovot, he brings down that idea that putting something on your tongue and just feeling the flavor is only isur derabanan. It's brought down in Tzadik Chet, in the beginning in the Pri Megadim. This is how it comes out over here in the Pitchei Tshuva in beginning of Tzadik Chet. And therefore, since we're dealing with Isur Derabanan, it's still Asur. But if the thing you're putting on your tongue is actually Davar Pagum, it doesn't have a good flavor, it doesn't give a good taste, so therefore you have 2 Derabanan, the Har Tzvi says it's Mutar, and the Pitchei Tshuva brings such an idea from the Noda B'Yehuda right in the beginning, where he says that אף הצמח צדק לא התיר על הטעימה בלשון, הוא מסיק שאף בדילה בלשון אינו מותר כי אם באיסור פגום ולא בכל איסור דרבנן. So here we go. Noda B'Yehuda brings down an understanding in the tzemach tzedek that if it's isur pagum, it's something that doesn't have a good flavor, it would be mutar. Now, if you try to eat toothpaste, you'll see it doesn't taste good. And since putting it only on your tongue, on your mouth, on your and cleaning your teeth and spilling it out is something that not getting swallowed, therefore it's 2 isurim derabanan. One is the flavor. Secondly, the fact that it's isur pagum, you're not going to eat it, you can't eat it, doesn't taste good. Therefore, such a thing would be permitted. But those that hold that it's asur, hold like Kabelsky says, in the end of the day, you're putting it in your mouth, and there's a good flavor to it. You feel a good flavor. If you would swallow it, would not feel good. But the flavor itself, it's good on the tongue, and therefore, such a thing would be asur. So that's a machloket. Lemaise, as I explained before, many Gdolei Adorot were matir such a thing. The Har Tzvi brings down, and Rav Moshe Feinstein, and so on. So therefore, one could permit such a thing. But that's only true when you're actually spilling it out. But when you smoke in a hookah, when you're smoking an electric cigarette, so you're inhaling it into your body, and the truth is that it's not only smoke, because if it would be only smoke, we could be matir. There's a Pitchei Tshuva in Siman Kufchet that brings Sha'ar HaMelech, that says that if it's only smoke and it has dvarim asurim, we could permit over here with few reasons. But electric cigarette and hookah actually has moist that gets into your mouth every time you inhale it, and that moist gets into your body, and that definitely has a din that it needs to be kosher. The reason regular cigarettes and cigars don't need to be kosher, according to Sha'ar HaMelech, which is a machloket, but Sha'ar HaMelech holds that way. Again, it's in Kufchet, Pitchei Tshuva, Sif Katan Gimel. He says there's a bunch of heterim smoking such a cigarette that they put in it davar asur. And the reason for that is, first of all, even if they put wine in there, wine in our generation, stam ye'enam bazman hazeh asur be'ana, it's a machloket. Machloket, you can take a look at the beginning of Hilchot Yain Nesach, the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah, if it's asur be'ana bazman hazeh. And since we have a machloket, and secondly, they putting the wine in there for what? Only for the good smell, not in order for somebody to actually eat it. That's a second safek. And thirdly is maybe there's maybe there's shishim in it, maybe there's 60 times against the cigarettes, whatever they put. So there's a bunch of things together with the batiha is matir such a thing. But in our case over here, which is definitely the liquid is davar asur, there's no shishim, and it's not like the batia because you mean to take it in and you mean to enjoy it, and it's not mazik. It doesn't give you a bad feeling when you smoke. In Adrabah, that's the reason you're taking it. And you're also inhaling something that has a liquid that gets into your throat and it gets into your body. Definitely, such a thing would not be permitted, as the Darkei Tshuva brings down in this Siman Kufchet. He brings from the Yad Yehuda. He says the following lashon: Lo shari lish'of hareach rak b'she'en kavanato le'enot me'hareach. The only time you're allowed to inhale the wine, the yain nesach, or whatever it is, anything else, he says that as a rule, anything you want to inhale, it's only mutar if your intention is not to benefit from it. As we explained before, you're doing it in order to find what the quality of the wine is, or for other reasons, but not in order to benefit and enjoy what you're doing from what you're doing. רק לדע על זה, על ידי זה, אם הוא טוב או לא. אבל אם כוונתו ליהנות, אסור. That's the way it is. Now, some thought maybe to be matir, because at the time that you have the liquid itself that you put inside the hookah or the cigarettes, don't taste good if you try to drink it. It's like a chemical. How could you drink such a thing? You can't drink such a thing. So therefore it's davar pagum. So, davar pagum, the halacha in Kuf Gimel says, כל דבר שטעמו פגום, אינו אוסר תערובתו. And therefore, over here, it's together with that ta'arovet. It's not 100% asur. There's some other things in there And therefore such a thing would not be forbidden. Why should it be forbidden? It's called davar sheta'amo pagum. You put some things that are asur inside that liquid, but that liquid, if it's not that majority of davar asur, it's ta'arovet, and therefore ta'arovet, it shouldn't be asur. כל דבר שטעמו פגום אינו אוסר תערובתו, ואפילו אין טעמו פגום מחמת עצמו, שבפני עצמו הוא מותאם ומושבח, אלא שפוגם תערובתו מותר. Even if that forbidden thing in it would be good tasting and would be asur, but once you put it together with other chemicals, other things, now as a liquid, now as the new thing that you mixed in it, it would be not good flavor, not a good taste. So such a thing is mutar. So maybe smoking such a thing should be mutar. But the Shulchan Aruch continues in Seif Bet and gives us the full understanding of this halacha, and he says the following: B'meh dvarim amurim, when is it that you can permit such a davar pagum, שפוגם מתחילתו ועד סופו? Only if it was pagum from the beginning until the end. אבל אם השביח ולבסוף פוגם, או פוגם ולבסוף השביח, אסור. So therefore over here, when you're inhaling it, once it gets in your mouth, it definitely tastes well. So I don't know, maybe it tastes well or maybe it doesn't taste well while it's in the bottle that you're sticking into the hookah or into the electric cigarette. And therefore such a thing could be that it doesn't taste good, but could be it does, I don't know. But even if it doesn't taste good, once you smoke it, it gets into your throat, definitely has a good flavor, and therefore that's called over here that it's pagum ulevasof hishbiach. When you have something that's pagum ulevasof hishbiach, we're running into that question of isur to inhale such a thing. So therefore, you have over here a bunch of reasons why one might think that, although one might think that it's mutar, but it's asur. Why would somebody might think that you can smoke such a hookah or electric cigarettes on Pesach without thinking that maybe it's davar asur, or on other times without having hechsher? Because we found in the Shulchan Aruch that says you're allowed to inhale that yain nesech, and therefore what's the difference? If you're allowed to inhale, so it's mutar. But we said that it's asur for all the reasons we explained before. It's because over here you're doing it for the other purpose, that's only to know the quality. But if you're doing it in order to inhale and benefit from it, definitely such a thing is asur, as the Shulchan Aruch points out in his lashon ledai mutov, as all the Rishonim explain over here that such a thing would not be permitted. And secondly, it doesn't, as the lashon of the Tosfot, which is brought down also in the Shach, that explains that whenever something damages you, it hurts you, it gives you a bad feeling, that is mutar. But otherwise such a thing would not be permitted. And therefore when you're smelling or when you're inhaling this cigarette, electric cigarette, or the hookah, definitely such a thing gives you a good sensation, not a bad sensation, it should be asur. And it's not considered only like te'ima, which means it stays in your mouth and you're spilling it out as you would do by toothpaste, because this is like more like a gum. When you chew gum, can you chew gum that's not kosher? Nobody allows to chew gum that's not kosher. Why not? It's only in your mouth. What's the problem? If you're eating it, it doesn't taste good, and it's only in your mouth, so it should be mutar, right? It should be one isur de rabbanan that's only in your mouth, you're not swallowing it. Secondly, the thing itself doesn't taste good. Now, maybe a gum, you could say that the thing itself tastes well, but it still would be asur for the fact that it's not, doesn't stay only in your mouth, because when you chew gum, you take that taste and flavor that comes out of the gum and you swallow it into your body, and therefore such a thing definitely should have a hechsher, not only a hechsher, it should have a good hechsher as well. And therefore, when we're learning this sugiyah, it's different than the toothpaste that you're putting it in your mouth and you're spilling everything out without having any intention to take inside anything. When we come to the sugiyah of the electric cigarettes, also same thing, you're inhaling it inside your body, and the moist gets inside your body. And since that happens, that is another reason that one would not be permitted to use on Pesach without hechsher and regularly without hechsher.